tutorial today. There is a specific block I do want to teach, and I'm having a heck of a time finding that the pattern or instructions, and so I'm kind of creating my own. And so in the meantime, because I had limited time yesterday, I came up with another idea. So we'll hopefully get to the one I really want to teach you, but this is kind of the same version or a variation of what I want to teach you. This one is a foundation piece block, and the finished piece looks like this. There's your block right there. And it takes 4 to make this star. So we're going to make the 4th point today. This is a free download. I'll send the link. There's free paper piecing or foundation piecing patterns all over. I could not believe how many there are when I started looking for the other one I want to teach. And I just thought, well, you can just go. I will include the link for this one, but you can go all over, and you can even modify these to different sizes if you want. I think this makes a 10.5-inch block finished when we get all 4 components done. So you print off. Now I just printed off on regular printer paper my pattern for today. If you are new to foundation paper piecing, don't go to the expense of extra fancy paper. I don't think we carry any here. I know I have had been told newsprint works great, so some people quite often go to newspaper offices, but do they exist anymore? I don't know. I also have been taught to use a really lightweight vellum, which is a really nice product, but that's if you become a fan of this technique. I love this technique. It is more time consuming, but it is way more accurate than anything you'll ever do. So some things that you need. I have an extra table put to my machine today because otherwise you're up and down a lot when you do this technique. And I have my fabrics already cut, and I have been very generous with my sizes for my block, just because when I first started learning this, I was told specific sizes to cut my pieces to, and I found that I kept missing them. And then I'd like waste all that time, and it would maybe be on the 3rd or 4th step, and you know, then you got to start the whole block over, unpick, you're too short. If you've already trimmed, you're out of luck. So don't trim until you check. That's one thing to make sure you do. So like I said, I've been very generous on how I've cut my pieces for this. Now let me talk a little bit about how this works. I don't know the best way to show this for the camera, but you sew. This is backwards sewing. I always call this backwards upside down sewing, and it takes a little bit to wrap your head around. You put your first fabric to the back side of your paper, and I'll show you that, and you start with number 1, and then we're going to add number 2, and then we'll add fabric 3 and 4 and 5. So you just follow your pattern and how it tells you to do it. You can use glue. A glue stick is a really good option to use for this technique, and you can go like that. So first we're going to do, I'm turning my pattern upside down, and I'm just going to lay my first fabric, and like I said, I'm very generous with my amount of fabric here, and I'm going to lay it down, and then I will hold it up to the light, and I'm going to have a camera guy follow me so you can see what I'm doing. See, I hold it up to the light to make sure that I am completely covered on my one area, and I am, so I'm okay with that. So I'm going to put a pin in. If I glued it, I would put a little glue on the other side. Fabric glue, of course. Now, some people on some of the videos, they're going to say they just fold their line like that. I am not accurate at just folding my paper and getting it on my line. I take an old credit card, and I dug this out of my wallet, didn't even know I still had it. Haha, surprises, right? And I'm going to put it right up against that line, and then I'm going to crease this. And now, because that's that way, I want to get rid of some of this excess fabric. And when I first learned, I was told to cut it 1/4 of an inch, but I found that I want to have a little I just like the comfort of having a little extra. You can get an add a quarter ruler. You don't need one. They are, you know, if I can save money, I'm going to save money. I do have an add a quarter, but I don't need one. So I have just lined a 1/2 inch line, and I know you can't really see it. This white line is right up against my paper, so that gives me a 1/2 inch right there. And yes, I'm cutting that off. Ooh, scary. But this will help me because now I'm going to turn this back over, and I'm going to take my fabric 2 and I'm going to line my straight edge up with my straight edge. Now I have already made sure that when I fold this over I will have enough. Now let me show you again. We're going to hold it back up to the light, and we're going to check to make sure that all of fabric 2 is completely covered by my fabric. I know it will be good because I tested it when I did these others. It's always good to do a practice block. And then I'm going to pin, hold this in place, and pin. Da, da, da. And then we're going to sew, and we're going to sew on the line. Now you can use an open toe foot. I've just got my regular presser foot on here right now. But I do want to do a couple of things. I want to have the machine work for me so I don't have to work so hard. So I want to just show you a feature on our FOF. This is the Expression 710. I'm going to put my tack stitch on the front of my stitch. I'm going to put the tack stitch on the bottom, and I want my auto scissor to all work. And this is why I love these machines. Okay, so we're gonna come in here, and I am going to bring this in, and I'm going to put my needle down. This is why I like an open toe, and I forgot it at home, but we can do fine. Drop my presser foot right on my line. Ouch. So you can see if I lift that up, you can see I'm right at the beginning of this line where that starts. Now I can take out this pin because I don't want to sew on my pins. And I'm sewing at a funny angle so camera guy can get this good. Okay, so now my machine's going to do a front and back tack. I told you last week I'd like to hold the thread. Raise that up, grab my thread. I do like to hold my thread when I start. That will prevent those nests that happen underneath, okay? And now I'm going to start. It's going to take a stitch, and then we're going to sew. And I'm just going to follow this line. And this is why it's so precise, because your lines are already in place, right? Your seam allowances. And when I come to the end, I'm going to tell the machine that I am done. I hit that pin. You heard it. And I have it cut for me. I don't want to have to think about that. Ta-da! So now all I have to do is trim this upper thread right here. So I'm going to grab that right now, get that out of the way. Okay, now we're going to come back to the cutting table. This is why I want to have a little table right here, because if my cutting table's across the room a long ways, it's a lot of up and down. This time, instead of my 1/2 inch, I am going to line my 1/4 inch up right along the fold of my fabric, and I'm going to cut this seam allowance away. Just like that. Seam allowance is gone. And now, because I don't have an iron here, I have my favorite fabric folding pen. Because you know I like this, and we're going to just run it right there and flip this to the back like that. And you're like, wait a minute, something's not right, because you know what I did? I just realized what I did. We're going to unsew. I did this backwards. Wrong sides together. I did right sides. Don't do that, you guys. Come on. I'm like so confident. Oh, I'm doing this all fine, right? This is why the seam ripper comes in handy. I just went, no, I'm upside down on my fabric, and many of you who've probably done this technique are like, yeah. And it's like par for my course. Every time I do something on live camera, I go upside down or backwards because I don't know why. So we'll just reverse this. We're good. It's all good. It's all good. Nothing. I have cut, but I think we can rescue this. We've got a big enough piece. We're fine. Come on. seam rip, da, da, da. Unpin, wrong sides together, wrong sides together. I'm going to hold this up to the light and make sure we're covered. Look at that, we're still covered. We are good. So, we're going to pretend again. This time it will work. Although because I used wet, it's going to be a little soggy, but that's okay. That will not bother me at all. We're going to repeat, go fast, make it work. Make it work. Because that's what we do, right? This is how it's supposed to be. Again, I'm going to hold it back up. This is a batik. It has no wrong or right side. Make sure that we're going to be all covered when I fold it, which I'm sure we are. We're good. Okay. Repeating that step just for you, for the magic of television. Because I looked at that and I went, I'm upside down. And it's just because I'm on camera, you guys. That's just like brain dead. Something, I don't know. Because I do this technique. I love this technique. This is one of my favorite things to do. Right. So again, drop that needle at the beginning of our line. Right there. Drop my presser foot. I've got my tack stitch active, so it'll go. Tack, tack, tack. Stop that. I don't have my needle down, which I always like my needle down. And we'll sew on that line. Get that adjusted right. Pull that pin out. Sew. I have my foot on the foot control to make the machine do that last tack and that last scissor. That's how you make these work, is you have to have your foot on the foot control. And then you just hit the reverse button and tell the machine that you're done sewing. So that's how that function works, and I think that's pretty standard on all brands. Okay, trimming this again. We'll just come in like that. Make sure we got it. Yes, we do. Okay, we're good. Now, this gets folded out. And that is how it's supposed to look. So now we've got to do that on the other side as well. So we're going to flip the pattern back over. I'm going to take this pin out now because it's sewn down. And I'm going to take my card, and I'm going to take it and line it up with this line on number 3 and fold back like that. Okay, then we're going to trim this excess off a little bit because that just feels like a lot. So we're going to take off this just a little bit, but it makes us line it up better. All right, turn this way, and then we're going to put this on. This, let me turn it this way. I got a nick, which is fine. Just kind of turn it up that way. I want to make sure that I have, again, always flipping and turning to the light to make sure that we are going to be all covered. We're fine. So now I can pin it from the paper's top side. Just pin it here, pin it. Make sure I have my edges there, so we're good. Okay, and then we come back to the machine. And again, I'm going to drop, I'm lifting my presser foot so you all can see that I'm going to drop that needle right there at the point of that seam right there. Take that pin out because I don't want to sew on that. And drop this down. Line my line up between my toes on my presser foot and sew. Hold that thread so it doesn't knot funny and sew along. Take this out. Now this is where I'm coming to the end, so I'm going to slow down so I can hit right here, hit my reverse button and tell the machine I'm done sewing. So now we'll do my tack and it will do the automatic scissor. Love that, love that, love that. Okay. Bring this back over and fold back my paper again and bring my ruler and trim to 1/4 inch right there. Okay, now I want to point out right here that I've got a little bit less than 1/4 right here on the blue. That's okay because that's actually in this piece here and it will get cut off anyway. All right, turn this over. My magic solution. Da, da, da. Press that open and voila. Okay, now we're going to come back and we're going to do section number 4. So getting my card, fold this like this. Okay. And now we're going to trim again. This is why I have this little table today, because otherwise it's a lot of up and down, up and down. You can stack several of these together and you can't really chain piece with this, but you can assembly piece because you've got a whole bunch of stuff going at one time. So here is my other piece and we're going to flip it again. Always flip to check. That's just really important that we take this and we hold it up to the light and we make sure that either we look from this way or we look from the front to see that the fabric is going to cover every piece that we need, every section of that area. Because if you don't, you'll have holes and then it will not work. And we don't want holes. Turn this over. I keep forgetting. I did that yesterday. I kept forgetting I have to pin from the front of the paper. This is why I call it upside down and backwards sewing, because usually we're sewing right here. We would be sewing on from here and here, but now we've got it upside down and we've got this on top. So it can be a little confusing in the beginning. So just take some time to get used to practicing it and you can do it. Okay, so once again, I'm going to pull a little tail out on my thread so I have hold of it. Drop my needle right there. I can take this pin out because the needle has it and I can sew. And you're just following your lines. This is what makes it so accurate, is you are following these lines and trimming after you sew. And you are perfect. And you can take one stitch over the line, which I just did. That is fine. Don't take more than one stitch, because then you have to do some of that unsewing stuff, which we just practiced, right? Okay, fold that paper back. Put my 1/4 inch on right here. The reason I'm telling you don't go out now and add a 1/4 ruler actually does make this easier. It's not necessary to go out and buy expensive tools unless you find that you really like this process. If you like it, then all means come in, we'll get you at a 1/4 ruler. We don't have any in stock right now. We can order them. But sometimes you need to try before you buy, because you know rulers are not cheap, and especially these days with acrylic being so short supply. I think I'm empty. Just think about that. Try one of your other rulers. I really do like this. This is a 3.5 by 12 inch Creative Grids. One of my favorite sizes to use. Okay, our last side. We're almost done. Again, we're going to fold this in on that line. And because it is a longer piece, I just am carefully moving the card down the line till I get it just right. Now I'm going to trim all of this excess off. That's too hard to try and figure out where to sew my extra piece to. And now it's ready. I've got a straight edge. I can bring that there. I can bring that there. Now this piece I already know because it's longer. We're good. So I'll flip this over and we're gonna stitch. And this way you also don't have to do any inset seams. I mean, we've talked about those before. Inset seams are tricky little buggers to do. We've done them. They're not that hard, but they do take a little time. This way we don't have to do, this would be an inset seam right there, and we don't have to do that. Okay, needle down, pin out, hold thread, drop presser foot, line me up. Let me line me up. Okay. And take your time sewing. This is not a race. You don't have to sew super, super fast. I never like sewing super fast anyway, unless I'm doing like a jelly roll race quilt, which is, that's fast sewing. All right, last seam. Turn our paper back. Do our last trim this way, and then we'll trim the whole block up, and we'll have our last component on our block. Like that. Press this. I think I'm out of juice. I am so out of juice. I grabbed my empty one. That's okay, we'll finger press it. I can do finger spit. We'll just push it back and I'll do a thumb press, just like that. Okay, that obviously got wrinkled today in travel. So there's our block. It looks nothing like this one yet. So we have to trim. We do have a final trim. And you're gonna trim on the dotted line. This is your seam allowance. The solid lines are always where you sew. So we're gonna keep it that, and we're just gonna line our ruler up. It's a 1/4 inch, and we're gonna trim it off. Just like this. Boop, boop, boop. And we have our paper piece block. The reason I chose this one is because this is a beginner-friendly block. And now our star is ready to put together. So we will put the star together next week and remove the papers. All right, thank you for watching. Give this a try. I'll include a link where to get the template. Like I said, there are all kinds of paper piece templates out there for free, and it's really a fun technique. So I hope you give it a try.